I mean, Bill Gates is demonically possessed. That's an alien.
I'm not convinced that he's a human being. He doesn't give me that vibe.
I mean, that's why you look at him, and I've seen what David Icke talks about when people sit there and their eyes go black.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it. And, it just, they get taken over. I mean, Bill Gates is not a human. It's his cells, he's there, but no, he's an alien. He's like a gremlin model.
Get him on the video. Check him out. And look at the size of that guy. Man, I can't believe it. That is wild, isn't it? All right, we got another turtle on the video. Cute little guy. Look at him. I wanted to get him eaten. Boy, I tell you, he was really tearing into that grass right there. It was pretty impressive. Let's get real close down to him. I hate scaring him. But there you go. All right, yeah, it's a hot day. And we're also out with the other animal, the boss dog. There he is. Look at him panting, man. It's a hot day, man. But luckily I'm in the shade. Otherwise the heat coming up would really bother him and I'd have to keep him in the basket. But since it's kind of shaded and it's cloudy, partly cloudy, he's good to go. Watching the world burn, watching the world burn. May 26th, 2025. Let's get into it. Semper Fi, Semper Fi, my fellow Marines. Happy Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. All right, so that was Alex Jones up front. I found that clip and I went, oh my God, that is just so great. Because Bill Gates, he has always been one shady character. I was trying to recall before I started making the video of how he got his meat hooks on DOS. And if I recall correctly, and don't quote me on this, that was a joint development effort between IBM and I guess Bill Gates' company at the time, back when he was supposedly first starting out. There's a lot of people that say he was actually financed, even though they say he developed it out of his garage. Now, it could have been in a garage, but anyway, there was money involved there, I think, that a lot of people don't know about. But anyway, so it wasn't like he did it all on his own. And then, of course, then somehow he got full rights to DOS. Maybe he paid IBM a nominal fee to get full rights. And then, of course, think about DOS. He plagiarized Unix. DOS he only did was change the command name slightly. And of course, it was running on a different architecture than Unix did. Back then, Linux didn't exist for PCs. Unfortunately, it would have been nice because I imagine Linux would have just beat out DOS. And then, of course, he came out with Windows 3.1, which was so bad, but I couldn't believe everybody adopted it. And the unfortunate thing is Macintosh could have buried him. Because the Mac, back then, its GUI was so much better than Windows. I mean, but the thing is, Apple, they were being very closed on that. They didn't want you learning or having open source software running on the Mac. It all had to be proprietary, and you were stuck within the GUI. Whereas when Windows came out, you still could use DOS, and so it gave developers, or people who like to fiddle with PCs, it gave them that creativity. Anyway, I just wanted to hit on that for 1 second. The next quick story I wanted to talk about, because I have a different take on this. I was telling you, I've been very conflicted on Epstein, because I told you there was no way in hell he could commit suicide in solitary confinement, okay? And so, I mean, that was a total lie. And then, of course, Dan Bongino came out and said, yeah, he did commit suicide. And I was like, that's impossible, Dan, but I trust Dan implicitly. I don't think I've ever caught Dan Bongino lying to me. whereas everything the mainstream media says is a lie. Anyway, so I was conflicted. I said, but anyway, then somebody came up with an explanation because I was watching this. Because guards, I talked about this at the border, that the cartels pay off the border patrol so that they could bring human smuggling, human trafficking into the country. And that's why Colonel McGregor says that we need to replace them with the military and actually rotate the military on and off. Because you can't keep bribing different people. It get too expensive. Whereas if the same guys are at the same gate, all it takes is just those guys are only making, if you're paying them $30,000 a month to turn a blind eye, they're going to do it. So same with the guards. So what if Epstein bribed the guards? Because when you think about the evidence, the guards disappeared. The cameras were cut off. Now, if you've ever been to a solitary confinement cell block, there's only a few cells in each block, at least where I was. And so it would have been very easy. And also, they said he had a roommate. Well, it's not two people in a solitary confinement cell, but it could have been somebody next door. That person was moved or transferred. So all the evidence there suggests that Epstein could have bought off the guards, which would have meant that the guards could have left him the means for him to kill himself or hang himself, I believe is what they're saying. And that's what Jan Bongino may be talking about. So I don't know. So we're going to get into de-dollarization in the first part of the video. And I've got a little ditty here by Peter Schiff. If you don't know Peter Schiff, he's a big gold bug. He's got his own company. I don't think his prices are all that great. I would recommend ST Bullion myself, which, by the way, they're running a real good special right now. Memorial Day weekend. Whenever you get to watch this video, it might be too late on junk silver. And I'm not sure if I can take advantage of it, but I might try to. Because, you can, if you pay upwards of like $200 or $300, you can get free shipping. And then that becomes, so then you're just buying a little roll of, $half. But anyway, I just wanted to read this to you. Peter Schiff on the dying dollar. And this is from Underground TV. I was very critical at the time of the Biden administration sanctions against Russia. And I said that would come back to bite us because I knew how critical the dollar reserve currency status was to propping up the U.S. economy. I said that Biden just sent a very loud message, a warning to the world that they need to get rid of their dollars, that they could be the next Russia. If they do something that the United States doesn't like, then they've got that weapon. And so why would you want to enable the United States with a weapon to use against you? So I said this is going to result in a lot of selling of US dollars and the US treasuries. And that's exactly what happened. The reason that gold is over $3,300 an ounce is because central banks are getting rid of their dollars. It goes on from there. So let's just watch that video, because I could read the whole thing to you, but you can just, I think it's just a written interpretation of what Peter Schiff says in the video. Let's watch that now.
But also, I was very critical at the time of the Biden sanctions against Russia. And I said that would come back to bite the U.S. because I knew how critical the dollar's reserve currency status was to propping up the U.S. economy. And I said that Biden just sent a very loud message, a warning to the world that they need to get rid of their dollars, that they could be the next Russia. If they do something that the United States doesn't like, they've got that weapon. And so why would you want to enable the United States with a weapon to use against you? So I said this is going to result in a lot of selling of U.S. dollars and U.S. treasuries, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, the reason that gold is over $3,300 an ounce is because central banks are getting rid of their dollars. And one of the reasons that the yield on U.S. treasuries just hit a new multi-year high and continues to rise is because we don't have all the foreign buyers that Biden scared away. And of course, we're also working to scare them ourselves, with this new big beautiful bill that the president is behind.
Yeah, I'll get onto that perhaps.
Blows a hole.
I'll get to that bill in part two, perhaps. But then, so Trump is merely hurting the U.S. economy by continuing the Biden sanctions while he pursues peace in Europe. Like, he could just stop the sanctions.
Well,
immediately, presumably. I mean, some might need an act of Congress.
Well, I think that ship has sailed. I mean, I think we've already established the precedent that the dollar is not sacrosanct. And if you're a nation and you have U.S. dollars, you have U.S. treasuries, and you own them in good faith in that you would trust that they would be a reserve asset, a neutral reserve asset. We've already established the precedent that that's not the case, that we can yank the rug out from under you whenever we want. So I think regardless of what Trump does now, right, if I was, in China or any of these countries, especially China, because, we vilify China. We say China's our enemy. Okay, well, if China's our enemy, why the hell do they want to leave themselves vulnerable by owning all of our bonds? And it's not just treasuries that they own. They own mortgage-backed securities. They have a tremendous amount of dollar-denominated assets. So I would be completely divesting as quickly as I could.
Okay, so on that note, I did want to talk about a couple of things. We're going to get into another video on de-dollarization, and words from a lot of people, the most hated person on the planet, Vladimir Putin, of all people. But anyway, the Japanese bond market is in bad shape. Okay, let's just put it that way. I don't want to say meltdown. Meltdown sounds hyperbolic, although it could be a meltdown from what I've been hearing. And also the yield on the treasury bonds, the 20-year bond went above 5. So this is going to make refinancing the debt in the United States hugely expensive. And if the 10-year treasury goes over 5%, we may go into default. I mean, you say, oh, that's an exaggeration. Why would that cause a default? Because when you're refi, think about a house. Look at what happened to me. I was paying 3.1% on a loan for my house. And I had it, but luckily I had paid, and the difference between me and the government was I had actually paid down that mortgage payment to about, I had 1/3 of the mortgage left. Well, when my wife divorced me, part of the settlement was I had to get her name off of the loan. Understandably so, but I mean, I was like, if she had been nice about it, I would have told her, look, I've never missed a payment. I won't miss a payment. But you know what? In finance, sometimes you just can't be nice. I don't fault her at all. But she demanded that I get it off. And there were penalties that I was going to suffer. And I won't tell you how, well, I paid it off by taking a cash value on my loan. But the alternative was to refinance that debt to 8.5%. When you go from 3.1% to 8.5%, your monthly payment, now I'm just doing this in normal terms. Most people know what happens when you go from a 3% rate to an 8% rate. I mean, it almost doubles your payment. So I said, oh my God, there's no way I can do this. So I couldn't refinance. Well, think about the federal debt. It's the same damn thing. When you refinance from what we're paying, maybe 2%, 1%, 0%, all the way up to 5%, 6% on a 10-year treasury note, man, and we're already $36, $37 trillion in debt. That's insane. Before I get into talking about the big ugly bill, that's what I call it, not or what do they call it? The big beautiful bill. I call it the big ugly bill. But let's get into the video where Vladimir Putin is talking about the fact that we're the ones torching the dollar. And then also I wanted to also say, a lot of people are saying that when Trump went over to the Middle East, he talked them out of not going into BRICS. No, he didn't. I'm going to guarantee you Saudi Arabia is still going to join BRICS. So is United Arab Emirates and probably Qatar. Okay? So you can see the de-dollarization is accelerating. And all because of sanctions. Now there was a video that just came out. I got it posted as a repost on my X account. ThatCyberSecurityGuy on X. By the way, I might as well do the other channels. you want to watch this on the big screen, it's The Burn, all one word, The Burn, TheBurn on Rumble. And then, of course, it's ThatCyberSecurityGuy, all one word on YouTube. All right, so anyway, I got off on a tangent here, but while I'm thinking, let's see, where was I? The big ugly bill. Like I said, we'll talk about that. Let's get Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, which was an interview from a while back, but somebody broke this clip out and I went, wow, I was going to talk about de-dollarization. This is a good clip.
To use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the U.S. political leadership.
Это основа основ могущества США.
The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power. I think everyone understands very well that no matter how many dollars are printed, they are quickly dispersed all over the world.
По-моему, 3%, примерно 3-4, что ли. Вот, приемлемо для США абсолютно.
Inflation in the United States is minimal. It's about 3 or 3.4%, which is, I think, totally acceptable for the US. But they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? It is about the emission.
Как только политическое руководство приняло решение использовать доллар в качестве инструмента политической борьбы.
Nevertheless, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world. As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake.
Сокращаются запасы доллара сейчас. Все смотрят на то, что происходит, и начинают искать возможности.
Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. What did we have here? Until 2022, about 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were made in US dollars and euros. US dollars accounted for approximately 50% of our transactions with third countries, while currently it is down to 13%. It wasn't us who banned the use of the US dollar. We had no such intention. It was decision of the United States to restrict our transactions in US dollars. I think it is complete foolishness from the point of view of the interests of the United States itself and its taxpayers, as it damages the US economy, undermines the power of the United States across the world. By the way, our transactions in yuan accounted for about 3%. Today, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles and about as much, a little over 34% in yuan. Why did the United States do this? My only guess is self-conceit. They probably thought it would lead to full collapse, but nothing collapsed. Moreover, other countries, including oil producers, are thinking of and already accepting payments for oil in yuan. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this? What are you doing? You are cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US. You're killing it with your own hand.
All right, so that was Vladimir Putin on the dollar. Oh, I was going to tell you about the Duran. Okay, so the Duran just did an interview with the guy who's worked in the United States and in Russia, and they were talking about the effect of sanctions on everything. Now, there were a lot of things that I learned in them. It was a long discussion. They actually went on for about an hour with this guy, But the guy knew, man, he's worked everything. He's been like 28 years in all the right industries to learn about what the effects of the sanctions are. And he was pointing out that we get paper from Russia, we get uranium from Russia, diesel. I didn't realize Russia, like 10% of the world's diesel comes from Russia. You know, of course, they got natural gas or liquefied gas, and then, of course, oil. Speaking of oil, by the way, the Russians are now, because the Finland and the Baltic states were threatening to capture Russian oil tankers. So Russia is now escorting those tankers, at least in the Baltic Sea. I'm not sure if they're going out to sea with that. And so Finland and the Baltics back down because, you know, you're not just going up against if you go up against a Russian warship, number one, that's going to be a hell of a battle. And I'm not sure how many ships the Baltic states have. I think the Russian Navy would pound the shit out of them. And I don't think that Finland has that big a Navy. So I can't imagine that they would do very well. And plus the Russians, you know, I talked in the last video about that new submarine. It's a monster, a nuclear submarine. But of course they've got a lot of great submarines. So yeah, that would be a losing battle very, very quick. So I'm assuming, and by the way, they call it the Shadow Fleet, and the guy was pointing out, he says, no, it's just ships fly under different flags. It could be a Norwegian tanker in a Russian port filling up, flying the Norwegian flag, or it could be, you know, a Chinese tanker. You know, you never know. He says the shipping industry is in and out of ports from all different nations. And he said that, you know, the merchant fleet in the United States all but has ceased to exist. I didn't know that. So anyway, so we depend on the world's tankers to get, you know, stuff to the United States and the cargo ships. And man, so what was some of the, aluminum out of Russia? So these sanctions, I mean, my God, I can't imagine what they're doing to Europe. You know, a lot of those things we kind of make here in the United States. Hope the wind's not getting too violent here. Like I said, I can't get the dead cat on the stupid mic because my hands don't work too well. And the way they made that dead cat, you can't pull it. I can't pull it over the damn mic. I haven't figured out a way to do it. So anyway, maybe I could like clothespin it on there, so something like that. You never know. All right, so the last thing that he pointed out, well, then of course the sanctions have all backfired. They were in the video. They talked about how it really blew back on the United States and Europe, much more so than, well, it doesn't affect Russia at all. Russia's gone independent on just about everything. The only thing that they're lacking on is chips. And we don't make chips here in the United States anyway. So they are kind of dependent on places like Taiwan, but they're in the process, be about 3 more years, they're building some advanced chip plants. And so that'll pretty much make them completely independent on just about everything. So they will not be importing anything. Well, they haven't been importing anything from Europe because of the sanctions. And at first that was hurting them. But now they will never need to import anything from Europe ever again. So Russia really cut off a market. I mean, Europe really cut off a market that was really profiting them. And he was pointing out the price of gas, natural gas in Great Britain is sky high. I can't believe the British people haven't revolted against their government. I mean, their government is dumber than a bag of stones. I mean, Stammer. I mean, that is one stupid, pardon my French, motherfucker, man. That's the dumbest prime minister I think Britain's probably ever had. You know, holy moly. The last interesting tidbit that came out of the video was he was talking about, and by the way, think about it, we pushed the world into this, was the advancements in drone technology. Now, I'm sure that you knew that Ukraine's been making use of underwater submarine drones to attack Russian ships. And Russia's, you know, they're developing their own underwater attack submarines to attack, you know, like Odessa and places like that. And of course, and by the way, we're going to get to it later. We're going to talk about the Ukraine war and drones here in a bit. I just want to talk about this one thing because we're on shipping right now. Was the United States has opened up another can of worms. We've developed a drone with solar panels and battery operated that it's kind of, it's a submarine, but it also has a, it can kind of just skim right along the top of the water, which makes it almost invisible to shipping. And you can load two missiles on that thing, and it can just go out to sea and roam around for a couple of months, no problem, no need to refuel, no nothing, The only thing is you'd have to be able to maintain communication with it, I would imagine, which probably wouldn't be a problem. And that anybody, because it's cheap, these things are not expensive to build. So he's saying that, of course, the United States can't keep a secret. He says that technology is going to get out all over the world, and every terrorist group, think about it, Yemen could start building these submarines and just have them out floating around in the Red Sea. As soon as they see a U.S. warship, boom, 2 missiles launched right out of the drone. And then, of course, the drone just kind of scurries off into the distance. And all of a sudden, the ship, 2 missiles coming out of nowhere. Like, where the hell did that come from? And think about it, 0 human risk. And imagine thousands of these things roaming the sea. And, so if you're a pirate nation and you want to blackmail, let's say, who's big in the shipping industry? India, for example. Or no, let's say, I guess Russia's probably one of the biggest shipping, and that's another thing. You think Lloyd's of London insures shipping anymore? No, it's actually Russia who's got one of the biggest insurance operations for maritime shipping. So we cut Europe off because that used to be a big market for them. You couldn't sail around the ocean without having a contract with Lloyd's of London to protect, the catastrophic event that your ship goes down at sea. So that's another thing Europe cut themselves off from. And I think other nations are providing insurance for shipping. So the Brits are a very small piece of the insurance market for shipping. All right, so let's get on to the big ugly bill real quick. So what was really ugly about it? Well, the one item that really got me, what's it called? Oh, damn it. I had it in my brain. I didn't write it down. But it's a provision in the bill that allows Democrat states to deduct the income taxes from their, from their federal taxes. Okay, and it used to be set at $10,000. And in the bill, it raises that. By the way, I'll put the text up above since I can't remember it, of what that section of the bill is called. And it's going to allow Democrats now to deduct $40,000. Why would they even put that in? Well, the Republicans in those Democrat states, because you do have Republican representatives in some Democrat states, they were worried that if they took that provision out, that they would lose, their seat in Congress, which is possible, I guess. But it seems now your Republican states are subsidizing the Democrat states. We have no income tax here in Florida, okay? So we can't take advantage of that deduction. It's only states like New York and California and Illinois, these high income tax states, they're all Democrat states. They're the ones that are going to benefit from this. And think about it. I don't know what the income tax is in Texas, but I'm very sure it's very low. Tennessee's probably very low. I didn't go back and look at all the income taxes, but I know they're very high in Democrat states. That's for damn sure. So that was one thing that was bad. The other thing was and people have argued this both ways. It provides for the federal government to raise the debt ceiling.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 90 seconds.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to these promises? This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message. Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight. I oppose this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Which is bullshit, you know, twice, 2 times, you know, if needed. And by the way, the spending, they didn't really put much in the way of spending cuts in there. It almost looks like a Democrat spending omnibus bill. You know, as far as spending goes, it didn't look like they didn't make hardly any cuts at all. So the debt's going to go up. They said, well, if we can grow the economy fast enough, you know, that'll compensate for the spending. Well, that's been the theory the Republicans have always put forward for quite some time now. Has it worked yet? No. When was the last time we had a balanced budget? Bill Clinton, man. I mean, so yeah. And of course they're saying, well, the tax cuts, which was good. You know, I think we got the no tax on Social Security, the deduction for American cars, the no tax on overtime, and the no tax on tips. I mean, that's all good. And we kept the old tax cuts in place. By the way, Democrats voted against all of this stuff. Every single Democrat voted against any of these things. You'd think they'd at least be voting for the spending. The other thing that pissed Elon Musk off, they didn't solidify any of the Doge savings that Elon busted his ass on. And the other thing is the Republicans are very short-sighted. See, they're worried about cutting themselves off from the big pharma money or the big food money. You know, the go-to sources where they get their money. Well, Elon Musk just not only became the richest man in the world, he's now the richest man in the world by far. And if they had just met Elon Musk halfway, imagine how much he would have donated to the political campaigns of the Republicans during the midterm. All they had to do was meet him halfway. If they'd solidified some of the Doge stuff, I guarantee you Elon Musk would. But Elon basically said, you know, I'm tired of this bullshit. He didn't put it that way. But, you know, he said, you know, I worked my ass off. We did all this, you know, the free work for the government. And then they turned their back on the spending and they turned their back on Doge. He says, I'm done with politics for a while. So they've cut themselves off, I mean, from hundreds of millions of dollars for the Republican Party. They've pissed off the one guy that was really helping us out, getting control of all the fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government. All because they want to keep the system the way it is and get their money from the usual suspects, the corrupt freaking corporations, instead of a good man like Elon Musk. Pisses me the hell off. Anyway, so, all right. But, so that was the big, beautiful bill. The dog's going crazy here. I'm going to have to walk him the rest of the way back to the car, and we'll pick up the video when I get back to the car. I'll put him in the car with the air conditioning going, and we'll go make the rest of the video at the end of the hike here. All right, now that the dog's chilling out, get the pun. Let's talk about the auto pen real quick. You know, a lot of people have been pointing out that there were 8,000 pardons that were, and they're thinking they were auctioned off, which is a federal felony crime, if that turns out to be true. And certainly there needs to be an investigation. And of course, the use of the auto pen throughout the Biden administration, you know, you'd think that a Democrat would wonder about that. You know, if everything that in a Trump administration had been done by auto pen, I guarantee you every freaking Republican would be going crazy right now. But a Democrat's just like, oh, that's okay. That's okay, because I'm just a meat puppet Democrat. You know, oh my God, it's just insane. But we do think we've identified the people that were actually running the government. And I assume they're going to make an investigation into this. It was the communist, Anita Dunn. She's a raving lunatic, which explains a lot of what was coming out of the Biden administration. Bob Bauer, you know, these people, I never really knew much about them. I guess they're just, you know, the spider in the web, right? And Steve Littlefield, and then of course they said that Jill Biden to a lesser degree. And Lindy Lee said that Hunter Biden, although I don't think he ever auto-pinned anything, at least as from what I've heard, but she said he was running cabinet meetings. Imagine a crackhead whore, you know, prostitute that was running cabinet meetings for the president. I mean, for the meat puppet that was Biden. The weekend at Bernie's, right? Oh my God. So we're going to be. It looks like we're going to have an investigation into the auto pin, but I don't expect much to come out of that. By the way, before I keep going, I did want to point out the Elon Musk money goes to the party, whereas the other money, the big pharma and the big food and the corporate money, actually lines the pockets of the politicians. So you can see, if you want to personally profit, you're better off in the old system than with Elon Musk, where it just goes to the party. Because, you know, if it's a Democrat party, you're going to get that money anyway. I mean, but in the Republican Party, I don't think like a Laura Trump is going to let you steal the money for your own personal gain. But anyway, so this was an interesting post by Milo Joy. And Aaron Hinckley, who knows, the U.S. border chief with experience spanning 5 administrations, has unequivocally confirmed that the Biden-Harris administration directed him to suppress, hide, and alter data related to the border crisis. He claims he was instructed to intentionally reduce detention capacity across the country while simultaneously issuing new Social Security numbers to undocumented immigrants. According to Hinckley, this enabled them to access full Social Security benefits and Medicaid, facilitated their voter registration, and ultimately permitted them to cast votes in U.S. elections. So there you go. We have inside confirmation on what was happening. And on that note, I have no proof of this, and I've been unable to verify it, but people are posting on X that they want to bring Mayorkas up on charges of treason, which they should. I mean, he invaded the country with 20 million illegal immigrants. And by the way, I think I've posted on X, I think, that I believe he was working for Cuba, or at least a foreign government, which that does make it treason. So, you know, all you got to do is, it seems to me, just make that connection and put 2 and 2 together, because nobody with the interest of the United States in mind would bring 20 million immigrants in. You know, I can't imagine why anybody would want 20 million people in the country unless you're trying to destroy it. And the Democrats hate America, man. They want to destroy this country. That's why they brought 20 million illegal immigrants into the country, all right? Yeah, somebody's listening in. So, all right. So we're going to get into some more on the Biden administration. I don't know if you're following along with Lindy Lee. She's cute as a button. And she seems very honest. And I think that, you know, now that she's gotten away, and the thing is, the reason why I enjoy watching her is because I learned a lot more about the Democrat mindset, you know, because she seems very level-headed, and she was talking about, you know, how she had Trump derangement syndrome, and she believed the mainstream media for many years, and it took her a long time to evolve. She said it was like a 3-year journey for her to come around to what the Democrat Party really was. And you know, her story is just fascinating to me. And anyway, so she was just on Stephen Gardner. If you want to go back and check out that episode. And she was talking about all kinds of stories. And there was one that she said she was revealing for the first time was she put together a party. I don't know what it was, a convention or you know, something in a, you know, whatever, a dinner party. And she was saying that to get a photo with Obama, she said nobody really cared about getting with Biden. It was $100,000 a photo to take a selfie with Obama. And I can't remember, there was 2 celebrities there, and they were only charging $25,000 for a photo. So you see where the Democrat money comes from. Can you imagine? Good God. 100,000 is more than I would make in an entire year back when I was really making decent money. But this is a video of her. Well, let me read the text to you first. I do not buy the timing of the Biden diagnosis. It's the latest in a long string of deceptions, starting with his plagiarism that tanked his 1988 campaign, the stutter they used to cover up his decline, Blinken's efforts to bury Hunter's laptop. It was all a lie. Let's watch that video.
My first gut instinct was that this is his attempt at a sympathy play, but this is going 180 degrees of what he intended it to be. The timing could not have been more interesting and more architected from my point of view. I think he had known for years that he has been suffering from something. And honestly, this is just yet another cover-up. It's the latest cover-up in the Biden regime. They covered up his cognitive decline. They covered up his health issues. They covered up everything. The Democratic Party has a tremendous truth problem right now with the American people. And because of their years of lying, they now have forfeited any trust that the American people had in them.
Okay, so there was that one. Now, this is Megatron Ron on Trump talking about military use. And I wanted to include this because, you know, in my last video, by the way, I got really sick after making that Gaza video. You know, the reason was, you know, I want you to picture this. You know, these people that are having to go through that Epstein, you know, people keep talking about how difficult that would be to watch people raping kids. I mean, if you got any conscience at all. If you're not a Democrat, that is. And so I can't imagine what that would be like. But it was the same way for me. It darkened my soul. You know, the video that I put together was only a little over an hour in length. And I had to choose and pick what I was going to put in it. Otherwise, the video would be so long. And I'll include some more video at the end of this video. But it just darkened my soul because I had to watch so many people die and blood and bombs going off and, you know, and thinking, no, that's too gory. I'm not going to put that in the video. And no, that's, you know, I can't do that. And anyway, it was rough. So I've been sick. I was sick for about 3 days, man. I was, and so I'm wondering if I darkened my soul making that video. But anyway, and so this is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Trump. So Trump says the job of the U.S. Armed Forces is not to spread democracy around the world at the point of a gun. The job of the armed forces is to host drag shows, or to transform foreign cultures, or to spread democracy to everybody. Let me get the second page of notes. Around the world at the point of a gun. Let's watch that video of Donald Trump right now.
The job of the U.S. Armed Forces is not to host drag shows, to transform foreign cultures, but to spread democracy to everybody around the world at the point of a gun. The military's job is to dominate any foe and annihilate any threat to America anywhere, anytime, and any place.
So that's the Donald Trump. And yet, right now, we're sending weapons, intelligence, and money to Ukraine, and have been since he took office. I've told you, I think we're at about 1.5 million dead Ukrainians, and at least 300,000 dead Russians. And Trump is bathed in blood because during his first administration, we sent more weapons to Ukraine than even under Biden, I think. Well, maybe not under Biden, but certainly under Obama, for sure. So he was a co-belligerent, even in his first administration, against Russia.
So we are really seeing this war intensify. And I keep seeing mainstream media reports that say things along the lines of, oh, well, Russia just isn't accepting a ceasefire, right? They're not accepting this proposal that the US and that Kiev have offered them. And it's like, yeah, you're right. They're not, because up until this point, Russia has made their demands clear, very clear, time and time again. And the US and Zelensky have essentially laughed at those demands, right? They have not taken them seriously. They have not acknowledged the reality of the situation on the battlefield. And so this is what happens next, right? When you have Zelensky in a position where he's saying, oh, we would never recognize these additional 4 regions, right? We would never agree to. Sure, we may agree to it in a diplomatic settlement, but we wouldn't really. Basically saying that no matter what happens, no matter what deal is agreed to, that this war is still going to go on and Kiev is still going to be planning for it in the future. Well, as long as that's the case, then what's to stop Russia from continuing on with this war? Because the U.S. asked them for a ceasefire. Well, the U.S. is still sending weapons to Ukraine, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio testified to this week. And all of this does come as Russia and Ukraine completed their largest prisoner swap yet, with each side releasing 1,000 prisoners of war and civilian detainees in exchanges that took place on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And this seems to be really the only thing that both sides are able to agree to at this point. And we have seen a number of different prisoner swaps over the last more than 3 years of war. And it's a reminder that they're not going to agree to a ceasefire, right? We've seen that thus far until they get a full settlement, right? Until there is a full agreement to end this war. And they're also reminded that as soon as there's a ceasefire, well, right now, Europe wants to rush thousands of troops into Ukraine to claim that they are so-called peacekeepers. Well, Russia clearly doesn't want that to happen, so they really don't have an incentive right now to agree to a full ceasefire. They're also not going to agree to recognition of the 4 additional regions that Russia now controls.
Just saying. And then he's all for the genocide of the Palestinians. There's no other explanation. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep sending weapons, money, and ammunition. Boy, there goes a rabbit. I wish I could have got him on the video. And, there's no other explanation. I understand he has to work for the Zionists, but he could at least say, I'm going to try to put an end to it. And since Zionists own his administration, I put up a post. I said, I think a war with Iran is inevitable because that's what the Zionists want. I don't see how we're going to get around it. So that means he's a war president. He's for the war in Ukraine. He's for the war in Gaza. Of course, Israel's warring in Syria. Israel's warring in the West Bank. Israel's warring in Lebanon. So Trump is for war everywhere. And he's for a war against Iran. I don't know. So that's why I said he's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That speech was beautiful. We already talked about those two. Oh yeah, so I don't know, you haven't probably followed the war in the last couple of days because you're enjoying your Memorial Day weekend. And I am now. Thank God, I feel better. And I'm out for a hike. And we'll start getting back to the dog now. Turn around. Anyway, but I'll just read this to you. Large-scale missile launches at targets in Ukraine. At least 2 Tu-160mm pictured, 7 Tu-95MS, 2 Su-57, and up to 7 Russian Navy ships have already been launched. Right now, there are at least 50 German Tu UAVs in Ukrainian airspace, with the same number on the way. Over the past 2 hours, explosions as a result of the Germanian UAV strikes have been reported from Odessa, Nikolov, Kiev, and its environs, Kharkov, and the region, as well as from Konotop and Shukha in the Sumy Oblast. And the reason why I wanted to read that to you, the war is taking on a whole new level. Right now, Russia and Ukraine, I don't know where, Ukraine's, I tell you what, they're really impressing me with the number of drones that they're able to produce. They're launching 500 drone strikes on Moscow. Now, very few of them are getting through because of the Russian air defenses. But they're pissing Russia off. And so Russia's hit, and that's another thing. Remember when Russia was supposed to run out of ammo and they were going to run out of missiles? And they said that for 3 straight years. If you listen to General Kelly or Hodges or any of them, Petraeus, I mean, the ones that get all the time, they've been lying or just stupid to the American people for years, and people don't pick up on it. They keep saying the same thing. Oh, Russia's getting low on inventory. Hell no, they just blew the living shit out of Ukraine in the last 2 or 3 days. I mean, salvo after Iskanders, drones, I mean, and they got some new missiles now. And I mean, they've been hitting targets in Western Ukraine. Kiev was on fire. I got video of that. I'm not going to put it in this video. I mean, pictures of it. I mean, just blast after blast. If you want to watch some stuff, go to the Military Summary channel. And there's a Ruskov, I'll put the name right here, Ruskov something. He's got a new channel, and he shows you a lot of footage of what's going on. So now we're going to get to the last portion of the video, which is going to be briefly kind of on Gaza. And I just thought this was an interesting clip from Bono. See, there are people that agree with me on Gaza. And so this is Bono on Gaza.
Hamas, release the hostages. Stop the war. Israel, be released from Benjamin Netanyahu and the far-right fundamentalists that twist your sacred texts. All of you, protect our aid workers. They are the best of us.
All right, so that's just a brief little video. And then this was an interesting, because this is on the Israeli shooting. And so this is just a little bit of information that you won't get from the mainstream news. It's Yaron Lachinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram are the 2 Israelis killed in Washington. Yaron was a former Christian who converted to Judaism and served in the Israeli army. He is a staunch supporter of expansionism of the Gaza war, advocates for more bombing on little children, and is against importing aid to the Gaza according to his social media activity. That is what apparently made him a target. So just a little tidbit that you probably didn't know. I'm not saying that I was for the shooting at all, not at all. But I just thought that, maybe if we read the manifesto of the shooter, that might have been his reason. That's all I'm saying. No way. And then, of course, we've got I found a video to add to what's been taking place since the 14,000 kids are dead now. And this was a new video I found on Al Jazeera. So that's why it takes me a long time to make these videos, because I got to comb videos on RT and I got to comb Al Jazeera, because you can't get any news on Israel and the Gaza or the Middle East, or even sometimes on the Ukraine war, except on those channels. Actually, YouTube does allow a lot of coverage on the Ukraine war. So Israel has only allowed 100 trucks carrying aid into Gaza since Wednesday, officials say, an amount that is nowhere near what's needed to help the enclave's 2 million people. Well, it was 2 million people. I don't think it's anywhere near that now. Christians all across the United States are celebrating, man, because soon it'll be about 100,000 Palestinians that are alive in Gaza. So, if we have our way anyway. And so let's watch that video.
The Israeli military has attacked desperate Palestinians gathering to collect wheat flour in southern Gaza. These are the scenes in Al-Mawasi, where an attack has killed at least 5 people and injured dozens more. Israel has allowed more than 100 aid trucks into Gaza since Wednesday. That's nowhere near what's needed to help more than 2 million people. Some of those supplies have been looted and none have reached northern Gaza. The attacks come as the UN is warning Gaza is on the brink of famine. Earlier on Saturday, Israeli attacks killed at least 21 people across the Strip. They targeted the Nusayrat, the refugee camp in central Gaza, and Khan Yunis in the south. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, says the offensive is intensifying with atrocious levels of death and destruction. Let's bring in our correspondent, Hani Mahmoud. He is joining us live from Gaza City. And Hani, just in the last half hour or so, we've been looking at those pictures of people fleeing from aid trucks with smoke rising in the background. What are you hearing about what happened in Al-Mawasi?
Well, Well, Elizabeth, these are hungry, traumatized family members who try to get to a point where 80 trucks filled with the flour were stationed on the northern western part of Rafah city, Mawasi area of Rafah city, where they try to reach these 80 trucks to get flours because of they're hungry, because they haven't eaten for the past 80 days due to the ongoing blockade of the crossings and the prevention of entry of much needed supplies here. This is not the first time we're seeing this is to happen. We've seen that in the past, almost a year, a little over a year from now, the better known as the Flower Massacre on the coastal road, where the Israeli military opened fire on large crowd of people trying to reach to flour bags. And this is highlights the risk taken right now. Many people are taking the risk out of desperation. They're not getting necessary amount of flour or basic supplies to keep them alive or to keep them surviving these difficult conditions. In addition, the aid mechanism delivery proposed by the Israeli military is very difficult and preventing people from getting whatever necessary for their survival. We're talking about the WFP, UNRWA, and other organizations who are not authorized, according to a statement by the WFP, they're not authorized to provide flour bags to households and only to bakeries. But just given how difficult the situation now, given how many people are hungry in central and southern part of the strip, bakeries are unable to operate at a level to accommodate the large quantity of need, the massive needs of hungry people in the northern part of the strip. For the past 3 days since the bakeries started to operate, many of the people were not able to get their designated one pack of bread and went back to their tents and their temporary shelter without any food. So what we're seeing now is out of desperation, where 5 people were killed as the Israeli military struck the area where the 80 trucks were stationed with drone missiles, killing 5 people as they try to stay alive by getting one bag of flour.
And that is the latest attack. It happens to be on people starving, but we've seen a number of other attacks in Gaza today, Hani, with the Nusayrat refugee camp in the center, places in Khan Yunis being targeted too.
Absolutely non-stop attacks across the strip. If it's not direct attacks on civilians, it's the ongoing home demolition of the eastern part of the Gaza Strip. We're talking about areas that used to be densely populated, with many of the residential buildings have turned now into vast fields of rubble just in the eastern part of Gaza City. 2 major neighborhoods, the Zaytun and the Shujaiya neighborhood, now add to them the Tufah neighborhood, that have been cleared of many of the residential buildings and the public facilities. And almost these ongoing attacks involve the use of explosive devices by the Israeli military, causing severe or number of injuries across the strip. But in overnight attacks and early hours of this morning, we're talking close to 21 people have been killed due to ongoing attacks on the residential flats in Khan Yunis city, and a residential flat in Hamad residential complex, as well as in Nusayrat refugee camp. Half of this number happen to be women and children, and that's the usual patterns that we are seeing over and over. Many of these attacks are designated to deliberately targeting families inside either their tents or inside their residential homes or temporary shelters they have been staying in for the past months, are also targeted and killed inside these places. Unfortunately, there is we don't see an end in sight to this ongoing tragedy, and keep evolving in each passing hour across the strip. There are more reports of attacks in eastern Gaza on people as they gather at the traffic circle waiting for aid to come in.
Hani, thank you very much for that update. That is Hani Mahmoud with the latest, joining us live from Gaza City.
All right, so we're winding down here. I wanted to end on a fun note. I thought this was cute satire. This is the Babylon Bee. I don't think they mind me stealing their stuff. And by the way, they got another video you're going to want to check out on liberal. Goes back to question James Madison on the Second Amendment. And it's pretty funny, but it's like 7 minutes long. And I was like, I'm not going to take that whole video. I mean, it wasn't as funny as the one that I'm going to show you right now. And this is just a short 3-minute video. I hope you enjoy it, because I certainly did. It talks about how, to every single Democrat, you know, all MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump, and maybe you are a Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi. Let's watch that video now. Wasn't that funny as hell? All right, man. You guys, I hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. You know, we have to remember all of our fallen that have given us the freedom we have temporarily for now, because I do feel hard times are coming. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And because we got 20 million illegal immigrants, that's an army within the United States. And when they're no longer getting their check from the federal government, I can't imagine what's going to happen. Just saying. So we could have a lot of chaos going on around this country as a result of what the Democrats have done to us. And so with that note, peace out and stay free.
Hi, my name is Chuck, and I'm a Nazi. Like, actually, I'm a real card-carrying Nazi. Literally. Here's my card. I've been a Nazi as long as I can remember. I believe all the standard Nazi stuff. I hate minorities and undesirables. I think Aryans should rule the world. The Third Reich shall rise again. All the classics. But it's not as fun to be a Nazi anymore. When they started calling Elon Musk a Nazi and Trump and, you know, pretty much every Republican, it made it a lot harder for me to stand out. It's like I go out in public and I'm like, hey everyone, I'm a Nazi. And they're like, big deal. Everyone we don't like is a Nazi. It makes me feel less special. You know, this swastika armband, it used to mean something. Now I'm walking down the street and every Tesla has a swastika painted on it. Every Republican's garage door has one. I just can't stand out from the crowd. Nowadays, anyone who owns a Tesla is a Nazi. Anyone who voted for Trump is a Nazi. Anyone who believes in enforcing our nation's laws is a Nazi. Anyone who doesn't want to sterilize and mutilate people in bizarre medical experiments is a Nazi. Which is a real head scratcher because, honestly, we've been huge supporters of that. Mengele was a real pioneer. I'm just feeling discouraged. I used to be unique, special, different. There weren't many of us. It took real effort and commitment to be a Nazi. Now all you have to do is simply imply online that you don't think students should be stabbed at football games or track meets, and bam, instant Nazi. I used to be able to Sieg Heil in a crowded room and really cause a scene. But now, anyone who's doing the wave at a baseball game or sending their heart out to you in a speech is apparently a Nazi. I guess I just want to go back to the old days when being a Nazi meant something. Because if we change the definition of Nazi to include any old Joe walking down the street, it loses its power. Because when everyone's a Nazi, no one is. Elon Musk is not a Nazi. Jordan Peterson isn't a Nazi. Ben Shapiro, well, now he might be a Nazi.
But he's a Jew.
He is? Oh, I just assumed he had a bald spot he was trying to cover him on the back of his head. Okay, Ben Shapiro is not a Nazi.